for EIDM in Africa. This webinar will also provide a great platform for producers, intermediaries, and users to share their experiences and insights on how the manifesto is being used to enhance EIDM in the continent. We will explore the successes, the challenges, and lessons that we've learned in implementing this manifesto since 2020, because this was launched in 2020. So it's been 5 years of us looking back and reflecting and exploring different aspects of it, as well as discuss the potential future directions to the capacity development initiatives that are taking place in the continent. So just to begin the webinar properly, my name is Siziwe Ngwabe. I am the director and the co-chair of the Africa Evidence Network. I'm pleased to welcome all of you during this session. Just to help us, navigate the webinar properly, just to navigate the webinar properly, we would like to share some housekeeping that will help us sort of navigate the process of being part of this webinar very well, because that will really help us make sure that we're able to participate and navigate the session. We will invite participants as much as possible to participate during the webinar. Charity is saying that the slides are not showing very well. I'm so sorry about that. Okay. I apologize for that from my side. Just to share that the housekeeping, the participant will be invited to participate as much as possible. Just to let you know as well that the session will be recorded, and we have cameras off to save bandwidth for those that are in slow connection spaces. And please help us with keeping your mic off unless prompted to switch on by the facilitator, so that it does not have a disruptive background noise for the webinar. In case of any technical challenges or problems that you are experiencing during this session, please write to Charity on the chat box so that she can help you out, and also engage with the discussions throughout the webinar by also using the chat box, and also the questions and answers and inputs that you have as the discussions are taking place. You can put them down to the chat so that we can help facilitate that process. Having said that, just to share a bit, I've earlier sort of indicated that this manifesto was drafted by a working group in 2020, this manifesto was an output of the evidence online in 2020. Basically, this manifesto is a declaration by all African evidence ecosystem about the kind of capacity development we practice. And what is interesting about this as well, it is Africa-led approach to enhance capacities in the continent. And most importantly as well, it serves as a resource and inspiration to evidence ecosystem in the continent. And it challenges the mainstream views on capacity building for EIDM in the continent. I think Charity will put a link on the chat, so that those that haven't seen the manifesto or engaged with the manifesto can click on that link and take a bit of time to get to know their manifesto and learn more about it, and use it as well in their workspaces. So I would like to, I think at this time, hand over to Ketchups, who is a moderator for the session. Whilst I'm handing over to him, I'll sort out my presentation so that it looks better on your end. Over to you, Ketchups.
All right, thank you very much, Siziwe, for the introductions, and we're all welcome to today's session. We appreciate the time that you make to join us in these conversations, and especially so as we are preparing for the big event ahead of us, that's Evidence 2025. To start with, I'll just give a summary of the event we're looking forward to, and then I'll introduce our panelists, and then we kickstart. So basically, Evidence 2025 is here, and it's part of the biennial events of the network, bringing all players, all practitioners, researchers around the continent and even outside of the continent who do some work on the continent together to discuss things, emerging things, connect, collaborate, and see what we can do differently. So it is one of those events that, like Sidiwe mentioned earlier, that this manifesto came up as an output, and we're happy to have brought it this far collectively. And as we're preparing for the next event in September, late September, early October, we are anticipating some events from different work streams, and the capacities work stream is one that will be doing some work. So the manifesto is one of those. It was revised and much work has gone into it. One initiative that is running in the build-up to the event in Benin is an initiative that is seeking the participation of the larger audience, the members, as in how you have been using, how you have been relating with the documents. So this is something that if you have not participated in now, we invite you to join the Living the Manifesto challenge, which seeks to promote our sort of a documentation of how different actors are putting the manifesto to use. So if you have not started that, please, you are encouraged to take the opportunity now. I think it's still open till end of this month, which are just a few days away. And we anticipate some session also during the event in Benin around the manifesto. So please get involved if you have not done that already. So yeah, I'll get back to the matter for which we're here, and I'll take an opportunity to introduce our speakers, our panelists. We have Dr. Harsha Dayal. Harsha is Director of Research at the South Africa's Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. She's been working as Director of Research since 2012 and has a doctorate of philosophy in development studies from the University of Johannesburg, my pardon. She has worked in this space for about 14 years, getting in mainly from the health sector, and then migrated to the social sciences. So she comes in with so much wide variety of experiences. Harsha, you're welcome. Next on my list, I have Leandro. Leandro H is with the International Network for Advancing Science and Policy, short INASP. Leandro works with them as an evidence and evaluation specialist, and through his technical advice, program evaluation, capacity building, applied research, facilitation of learning, and organizational analysis, Leandro has supported the use of evidence and knowledge in decision making across a broad spectrum of institutions, joining us to do some work even in Ghana. Leandro, you're welcome to this session. I'll take now Dr. Patrick Okwen. Patrick is team lead at Effective Basic Services, eBase for sure, eBase Africa. Dr. Okwen is a distinguished medical director, medical doctor and healthcare leader dedicated to transforming health outcomes in Africa. He has a strong focus on community-driven solutions that address the unique needs of vulnerable populations, particularly women, children, and Imbororus. Yeah, Patrick, you are welcome to the session. We're happy having you join us. And last but not the least, we have Dr. Jennifer Opari-Kume, who is a research scientist at the WorldWorks Hub for Global Education, located with the University of Oxford. Jennifer's work focuses on the design, evaluation, and implementation of education and mental health interventions in sub-Saharan Africa. At the WorldWorks Hub for Global Education, she leads multi-country studies in Ghana, Sierra Leone, working closely with senior government stakeholders and development partners. Jennifer, you are equally welcome, and thank you for making time. So, colleagues, we will move in straight, but to start with, we would want to explore how you entered into this space, right, of evidence to policy, the directions that you came in. So just some 2 minutes introductory remarks, and then how you have connected with the manifesto. So just some 2 minutes introductory remarks from your end, and then we take the conversation further. All right, so I'll start with you, maybe Leandro, if you want to start for us.
Yes, sure. Thanks, Kirchhoffs. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay. Well, thanks to the African Evidence Network for the invitation. It's my pleasure being here today. Two things I want to start with. First, I have a sort of cold today, so apologize if my voice is a little bit difficult to understand. The second thing is, I think it's important for me to clarify that I'm originally from Argentina, in South America. That's where I am based. So I've been a longstanding collaborator of the African Evidence Network, and also an advocate for promoting evidence-informed decision-making across the Global South. And that's how I'm connected to the Africa region. I think that's an important starting point for my intervention. How I enter into the field. Well, I used to work at the think tank in Argentina, producing research for to inform policy decisions, mostly at national level, but also at national level. From there, I started to connect with different global organizations and other think tanks around the world, first in Latin America and then in other countries that were trying to do the same. And I started to engage more with them. And that's how I ended up moving to supporting evidence-informed decision-making across regions. So a few words about the manifesto very briefly. Over the past few years, the manifesto has been a key reference in my work supporting evidence-informed decision-making, as Kirchhoff said, across diverse stakeholders, themes and regions, particularly in the Global South. For what I was mentioning before, where I come from, I think one of the most interesting features of the manifesto is how well its principles travel across contexts. Although I acknowledge the African roots of the manifesto, and it's always important to acknowledge contextual differences. I seen from the experience that the manifesto's ideas resonates with different partners and organizations looking for more equitable and non-extractive approaches in regions such Latin America, where I'm from, but also in projects I've done in Asia and, of course, in Africa. A few things that I think are very critical. It's the manifesto shift from capacity building to capacity development or sharing. Although if it's not very novel in the field, I think it's especially powerful, as it helps reframe capacity not as something that had to be delivered to others, but something to be co-developed and strengthened across organizations and stakeholders and system. I think that the manifesto's emphasis on equity, contextual sensitivity, and the value of local knowledge, it's critical and has guided me in when advocating for more participatory and inclusive strategies in development projects and in policymaking in general.
All right. Thank you very much for those introductory remarks, Leandro. Let me go to Harsha, then I come to you, Patrick, and then I finish up with Jennifer, right?
Thank you very much, Jay. Yeah, so you asked us to do this little bit of a reflection, and I think 5 years since the manifesto was written and documented, I was part of that group that documented it. So I'm taking this as a moment of pause and reflection, so to speak, and really just bring out this part of how it did help me, but also how I got into this work. So I think for me, I'm taking a very big part of this manifesto, a big principle. And one of the principles was to underscore the value of using multiple sources and types of decision making, types of evidence for decision making purposes. And that really, set the scene for my positionality at the center of government. And this situation where we work across sectors, across government, whether it's local, provincial, subnational, or national, it didn't give us the luxury of working in a very, quiet space doing research and working with known researchers. So it was a very different situation. And one of the principles that I'm pulling out again from the manifesto was the valuing of bridging between theory and praxis. And that really, really brought out these issues of capacity. So I was regarded as an evidence user because most of the people who were generating the evidence were coming through me to link it up with the different policymakers, the different sector experts, the different government departments. And increasingly, even though I was using and became labeled as an evidence user, I was increasingly playing that broker role. And no one taught you how to do that. No one explained what, evidence brokering or knowledge brokering really meant. So basically, there was beginning a shift because traditional research methods didn't work for us. And single study. So the other big one was that, one single study didn't really help with showing what policy direction needs to be taking. So just 3 highlights that comes to mind with shifting these evidence capacity, because it was really about shifting needs that you had to keep up with the different evidence capacities. So one was that we needed to identify knowledge gaps, right? But once the knowledge gaps are identified, who builds that base of where the knowledge is not identified? Then we needed capacity to build collaborative partnerships and relationships across the evidence ecosystem. Nobody teaches you to do that. You come across how to, respect other expertise. Everybody who deals with a certain sector has different expertise. And that is something that is quite inclusive approach to how we want to also generate local evidence. The last one, Chair, is this aspect of institutional capacity. And I think knowing that we're working in a very sectoral, pluralistic approaches, we understand that now going into AI, the future is going in that, but how do we actually ensure that capacity of those that do exist is not left behind? And this is in the institutional nature of things that we need to understand how we can break out of our silos while still remaining purposeful and unique in what we do within this ecosystem.
Wow.
So yeah, let me stop there,
Thank you.
and I welcome questions. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Harsha, for such introspection, especially after some years now having launched the manifesto and revised it once. It's good to think back to know where we are. Patrick, if you want to share now your own direction into the space and how you have interacted with the manifesto so far. Patrick.
Thank you very much, Keshav. Thanks, Leandro and Harsha, for opening
You
the
want
stage.
to open your video, sorry.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. So I think at eBay's, the manifesto, the experience with the manifesto has really been like the weaving of a fabric, of a very rich fabric. In Africa, generally, stories are not just told, they are lived, they are shared and used to make decisions. And this is kind of the perspective where we are coming from at eBay's. I think at eBay's, we've also believed that evidence should work the same way like the stories in Africa work, like living, shared, and used for decision making. And that's why the AEN Manifesto resonates quite strongly with us. And it is not a checklist for us. I mean, sometimes we talk about the checklist manifesto and stuff like this, but this hasn't been like a checklist for us. It's gone beyond that. It is a call to action for capacity sharing, for us to share the experiences we have, for systems change, and for centering the African voice in evidence production, evidence translation, and in evidence use. And I recall when the manifesto was being molded, as we struggled to understand what is the meaning of a manifesto, as we struggled with the power outages, the internet challenges, as we struggled to connect with new friends across different countries, different contexts around the world. It wasn't that easy, but over the years, the music of the manifesto has quietly been singing in our heads and has been molding the work that we do at eBay's. Even if we fail to count these blessings through documentations, for example, but it has been very useful. And our work brings this to life with projects like Evidence Story Day, where we turn oral storytelling into usable evidence in fragile contexts, or where we use AI-powered tools like the transfer model, which adapts global evidence to local context. And this vision is embedded within the AEN, and then it resonates in the manifesto. And for us, this manifesto is already working in classrooms, in farms, in clinics, and council halls, not just in reports. And as we look ahead to the Evidence 2025, our main question is, how can we make sure that the manifesto doesn't sit on a shelf, but it's in the hands of the African decision makers, the teachers, the citizens who really need to use it for improving basic services, improving livelihoods. So this is what we have been looking at eBay's. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Patrick. That was an artistic submission in there. Very helpful. Jennifer, you want to take the last ball and then we move on.
Sure. So I entered this discussion with AEN also around 2020 when this was all being put together, but I was in a different working group actually, so I didn't get the pleasure of putting together the first points on the manifesto. But I think what the manifesto does so powerfully, and as we know, language is a political tool. And so what I think this manifesto offers us is new language, a reframing around how to transform and shift power relations. So this reconceptualization of, capacity building to capacity development, sharing and enhancement is not to be taken lightly. I think that's something that we can run with and we are running with. And it's so important as we engage with multiple governments, multiple partners within the evidence ecosystem to think about what do we bring to the table. So I think that's something that's really resonated very powerfully with me and also with the organization that I'm working with, is to move out of this deficit thinking and model for how we share our various capacities. I think that was quite an important point. And then as well, thinking about this theory, bridging the theory and praxis gap, and Hesh also mentioned this one, is that I work a lot in the evidence generation and, intermediary space. And so that means, either a government in, let's say, Ghana, for example, is saying, what can we do to improve children's learning outcomes at the primary school level? So there's like all this theory and what works, which hence the title of the name of the organization I'm with, but it's not really about what works. What really we're asking is the how and why what works actually works. So then it's actually about an implementation science. And once you start talking about an implementation science, you're suddenly talking about multiple forms of evidence and research. So this is also coming out in the manifesto, that we need multiple sources. So we're talking about what can we learn from practitioners? What can we learn from implementers? What can we learn from big research studies, whether qualitative or quantitative? Let's bring together all this body of knowledge and let's condense that. Let's translate this evidence in a way that can be taken up within our various systems and can actually be used in a way to improve outcomes, whether it be health, education, holistic outcomes for all people. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. Those are powerful reflections on how the manifesto has actually walked the corridors of use. Thank you once again, Jennifer. I think I'll come to you, Patrick, now. In the course, so I can take this from Patrick and then maybe Jennifer again. As producers of evidence, right, in your own respects, you do produce evidence at some point. What has been some of the challenges that you have experienced over the years related to the production of evidence? And how has the manifesto in some way helped address some of these, if there are some particular experiences you want to share with us? Yeah. Yeah, Patrick, you want to start? Yeah. You're muted, sorry. You're muted.
Okay, so I think there's been loads of challenges, and not just challenges, also loads of failures. But the good thing is the train is moving, and I think that's what matters. In essence, I think the first thing is that in producing evidence, be it generation or synthesis, the play field is not the same. So we have a lot of prescriptions, and of course, I understand a lot of people who do these prescriptions do not understand they are doing prescriptions, and they don't listen to us with humility. I mean, I'll use a statement that was used by one of the storytellers, listening with humility. They fail to listen with the humility that is needed to understand that when we bring up solutions for knowledge production and knowledge synthesis, this is because we are responding to challenges that are within our context. So most of the time, because they didn't listen carefully, they tend to dismiss it. And it's very difficult for us to compete at global stage for funding or for legitimacy, because we are speaking from a perspective and with a language that does not resonate with them. Now, Africa does not lack capacity. The point is just that I think the rest of the world, or the space, or the evidence space, may not be listening with that humility to understand that when we say that conducting a study or a systematic review that is only looking at quality of learning in education and probably ignores attendance, it is because from the context where they come from, there is no issue with attendance. But from the context where we come from, there is a big problem with attendance. So you can have 5 out of 10 kids who are in class and are receiving good quality education, but you bring a new impactful intervention and it reduces those 5 to 3, but they are still receiving excellent quality education. Our interest is how can we make that excellent intervention to be able to bring more kids to classrooms? And this could speak to what Jennifer was talking about earlier on the tricks or the complexity of implementation science, not just what works, but why it works, and how can we make it more meaningful to the community where we want to maybe transfer across context. So I think there are lots of other challenges, but this is one of the challenges I would really want to bear on, because there is always the feedback that you will get that we wanted applications from Africa, but there are no good applications from Africa. And this could just be because my application was saying I was going to focus on attendance and quality of learning, but the funder wants to see me say that my application will focus on quality of learning. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Patrick. Yeah, Jennifer, you want to give it a shot too?
Yeah, I really appreciated Patrick's submission. So I think I'll build on that by saying, as an evidence producer in some sense, it's a lot of the questions are around even what is quote unquote good evidence. This is a continuous argument because we don't agree on what that is. And so I think part of that challenge is we're not asking the question. We're wanting to meet any problem with our already pre-packaged solution. So this, what Patrick is talking about, this listening with humility, is an active listening. So what are the problems that we're trying to solve? If you're an evidence producer, what problems are you being told exist? Not what solutions do you have for the problems that you assume are existing, quote unquote, the context and conditions, but what are the problems that are being explicitly communicated? And then we can go to the drawing table to say, okay, so with these problems, what questions do we need to be asking, and what ways do we know to produce the evidence that's needed to answer those questions? And there'll be multiple methods and multiple ways to get to that. So I think that that's one of the core challenges that it's almost like a puzzle piece and we're putting the wrong pieces together, so we're not quite fitting yet. So there is there's a great need for facilitation, and actually a great space for such as the AEN to exist to kind of coordinate and facilitate this knowledge sharing evidence translation challenge.
Sure, thank you very much. So drawing from the producer perspectives, I'll come to you, Harsha, to look at things from a user perspective. As someone who engages evidence in the course of your work, producing resources for your immediate, consumers, have you had some challenges that the manifesto seemed to have helped, address some of those? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if you want to hear all the challenges, you'll be here for probably a week or so. But you did say that what did the manifesto help? So I think part of it is as Patrick and Jennifer said, and it's good to see that whatever our challenges are, it's across the user, producer, continuum, and it's about convincing behind the scenes that evidence matters. And now we went through this evolution, and as Jennifer also pulled out, the going from capacity development and capacity now to capacity sharing, it's this recognition that everybody has different sources of evidence that they hold and they value, right? So when you value a certain source of information, then you hold that cards quite close to your chest. So it was never, so to speak, that policymakers did not look at evidence. And I think that narrative was quite a difficult one to shift with producers in the starting point, and to say no, there's a lot of debates that happen that producers are not maybe part of, and evidence is being sourced. But one of the biggest challenges I had as part of the users was that we were working with the evidence ecosystem out there. Those are the producers, the think tanks, the universities, all of them that were generating it. But it's to start to shift the understanding that even in government and even in practice by NGOs and those that are working at the coalface of communities are generating evidence that may not be documented in the traditional sense of scientific knowledge, but it's experiential knowledge, it's craft knowledge, what we talk about in government. Because of being so long in experience in a certain situation, that that's the one thing, one big challenge, that to start to shift the needle a little bit, that what is this evidence that we are talking about? So we have been very transparent in defining and then nipping that debate in the bud, is to say, let's declare where our sources of evidence are, and then we move on from there, instead of going back to this debate about which evidence is more important. Secondly, Chair, I think the other part is this real turnaround times, because as a user, we could not wait for producers to take 2 to 3 years and surveys to come out when it was completely kosher. We understand quality and we understand scientific rigor, but the timing part was just the problem. So yes, I've shifted from user maybe to producer of synthesis kind of evidence, because it was necessary. And I'm looking forward to what Leandro has to say, because this intermediary is probably what Patrick does, Jennifer does, I do. We do not have a declared position that we are intermediaries, but we are all doing that functionality, just to bring research closer to where it matters, to bring ideas closer to where it matters, to bring what works closer to where it matters, as well as the people that can link up with other people, because then we can move out of the space. Thanks. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Harsha. So I'll come to you, Leandro, as Harsha was pushing towards you. What are some challenges that equally you have faced as someone who intermediates this space? And like Harsha mentioned, we acknowledge that, all of us here are in one way or the other involved in some intermediation, although we do produce and we do use along the line. But particularly in your work as, as a professional intermediary, what kind of challenges have you had, and how has the manifesto sort of served as a useful reference point for inspiring ideas? And I'll just link this to its second question. How have you also evaluated the effectiveness of your intermediation, interventions? How have you sort of gone about evaluating that? And how has the manifesto also informed such evaluation of your intermediation interventions?
Yeah, great. Well,
so
thanks.
2 questions for you at once. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay. I'll try to be brief with both of them. So, sure. First, I agree that in practice, the boundaries between these three roles, users, producers, intermediaries are far less clear and are more nuanced. So yeah, in terms of challenges, one of the ways in which I refer explicitly or implicitly in my practice as an intermediary to the manifesto is the acknowledgement of power imbalances or power relationships when we talk and discuss and want to affect knowledge ecosystems, right? So, for instance, a concrete recent experience is in supporting or evaluating a long-standing program of a global philanthropic organization that the objective is to support Latin American scientists to go to do postdoctoral studies in the US with the ambition that if they are trained in the US and then return to the region, they would help develop further and strengthen the regional science ecosystems. The idea, it's interesting, but there was a key challenge that we noticed. The donor kind of wanted to fund excellency in research, right? This idea that the science you need to fund and support the best people and the best scientists, no matter where they came from. But that principle was kind of hiding that there are research ecosystems within the region that are stronger than others. Like, some countries have a long-standing tradition of science, where some smaller countries they are still making their first steps in building research infrastructure. So acknowledging these differences is very important. I'm sure that the same resonates in the African continent. So bringing in this perspective and this angle I think it's very important as an intermediary when you try to connect, philanthropic organizations in this case with scientists in the global south, for instance, because if acknowledging that the starting point is different, then it calls for different strategies to support the strengthening of research ecosystem. It may not be enough to just funding one people, two people in specific countries, because even if they come back to the countries, they may not have the right supportive environment to conduct research. Well, that's one example of how I refer to the manifesto to make the power imbalances in knowledge ecosystem clearer. In terms of how to measure, my work or capacity development efforts, I think it's important to not only, we know that usually organizations that want to measure are very much on the side of quantitative measures, right? Quantitative metrics, how many people, let's quantify this and that. But I am an advocate of qualitative feedback most of the time, because they give you some ideas on how people are experiencing the success and failures and the flow of different interventions, whether it's policy or programs. So I really like stakeholder-led reflections. I also think as an intermediary, it's important to focus not only in outputs of interventions, but also on relational outcomes. See what stakeholder thinks about trust building in projects, collaboration, power imbalances, and how those were solved. So I think that's one way which I refer or I use the manifesto to try to come up with monitoring and evaluation frameworks in different interventions.
All right, thank you very much. At this point, I would want to mention to our audience that if you have any questions, there's a time we're expecting some questions possibly running through the chats. Then we could invite you to speak to or direct them to the speakers. So please don't hesitate to share some of those. So from Leandro's point about the relational aspect, relational outcomes. I think I would come to you, Jennifer. How do you think we can work with the manifesto to promote a more collaborative and inclusive approach to EIDM in Africa using the manifesto? How do you think we can make, deploy it, make better use of it for the relational outcomes that Leandro referenced? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I had my camera off, but I was nodding my head really vigorously as Leandro was speaking. I was like,
yeah,
yes.
I see Harsha's
really...
agreements also in the chats. Yeah.
Yeah, it really just touches the core of it. And as Leandro was speaking, I was just going back to the manifesto, and one core quotation that came from there from Paulo Freire was, the transformation is only valid if it's aimed at, if it is aimed out with the people. I'm getting this wrong, but basically if you do it with the people, not just for them or at them. But as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about our own African proverb that's like, if you want to go fast, right, you will go alone. But if you want us to go far, we will go together. That one we all know. And I think the key thing here about these relational outcomes and this trust building is the willingness to slow down. I think that's the reality of it, that you have to be willing to slow down so you can go further in the long run. So we all have our project objectives, we have our funding deadlines and our reporting deadlines, but in actual reality, the outcomes that we care about take time. And it takes time because it takes time to build trust, to understand intentions, to know that you're aligned on the key outcomes, and those outcomes are long-term. So I think the simple short answer to this is to slow down so we can go far together.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a very critical thing that we're all, in a haste to demonstrate results, and it's the timelines are not favorable for, to allow for some of these things to happen naturally, organically. I would come to you, Harsha. I would want us to look at some key success points, What are some of the successes that you think we have chalked from the perspective of the manifesto? And how do you think we are evaluating some of those? Harsha?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So let me just also say that Jennifer used a very powerful term, that language is aligned to politics in a way, right? It's about, and then Leandro spoke about the power dynamics, and when Patrick mentioned the word humility, it's this balance between soft and hard power, right? So soft power being humility, then hard power being this, this we know better, and Africa then will just absorb, and you are there to be just filling spaces for capacity, the capacity gap, so to speak, right? So I think the manifesto, sometimes I run away from very flowery language, because then flowery language still has to land somewhere in a space. But I think the manifesto was sort of ahead of its times. And when you bring out some of those concepts that were put there in terms of theory and praxis, for example, it really puts forward the work that we are doing in Africa that matters. And it's this kind of knowing, doing, and being in context. And I think this is what some of those that are showing, that when you self-correct and you self-regulate, you do not really need someone else to tell you what's going on. So it's that kind of problem-solving capacity that the manifesto sought to address. And I think part of the successes is to show, not just in Africa, but in our individual capacities and building up our organizations, that what we do matter. And let's not just look on the outside for answers. Sometimes the answers are right in front of us. So that shifted quite a bit. And I think, knowing that someone else is thinking a little bit like yourself and you're in a different context, you can bring that lesson right over to yourself as well.
Sure. Thank you very much for these reflections. We're seeking to demonstrate results from the manifesto. And so again, just to recap, those who have not participated in the campaign going on, Living the Manifesto, kindly help us document some of these experiences, right? We have Ronald. Ronald, I saw your hand was up. Yeah, you want to, yes, kindly unmute and come through with your question or contribution. This is the time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Keshavs. Unfortunately, I can't use my video because the bandwidth is very poor.
That's okay.
But yeah, it's good to see familiar colleagues. And I'm Ronald Munaz from the Zimbabwe Evidence Informed Policy Network. And as colleagues were speaking, I couldn't help marveling at what is going on. And apparently, I've also been a part of the team who were behind the manifesto as well. And so when other colleagues were speaking, I couldn't, I could see the glaring overlaps between the Africa Evidence Manifesto and the Evidence Synthesis Infrastructure Collaborative. Apparently, I was privileged to be one of the work groups, and I'm happy to see we have the ASIC co-chair as well, Patrick, and I think Dr. Asha as well was in one of the work groups. And looking at the overlaps and similarities, I couldn't help noticing the fact that there's something that we can do to ensure that we tap from some of these aspects. Whilst the manifesto is a broad call for action, to enable collaboration, capacity development, the ASIC roadmap is more of a hands-on initiative to provide accessible tools to ensure that policymakers have access to high quality, accessible evidence, especially its emphasis on the global south. Yeah, because if you look at the aspects of demand-side engagement, data sharing, responsible use of AI, methods and innovation, I mean, there is potential to actually tap from this global initiative. So if you look at the manifesto, it's well grounded in terms of epistemology and to some extent positionality as well. But what we need is the urgency. So my question maybe to Patrick and probably Harsha is how can we tap from some of the aspects of the ASIC global roadmap, including its rich expertise base and also the framing, so that we can get to animate the manifesto and make evidence more accessible and impactful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ronald. Yes, Patrick, you want to respond to that? And Harsha, quickly, just minutes each, please.
Yes, I think quickly, what we need to do is there is, if you look at the manifesto, I think there are about 7 sections there that speak to collaboration, which is already the whole idea of ESIC, which is a collaborative. So it means that we have somewhere to go to, with respect to capacities as well, collaboration, coordination. What is most important that we try to do is to make sure that the manifesto does not become a graveyard of great ideas. So we have gotten some experiences from this process, and I think from the discussions we've had here just now, we see that there are several things that are going on. So if we could document these things, I believe that we would be able to find the work we do within the Africa Evidence Network fitting into all the working groups that are within ESIC. So my recommendation on how we can align this is to, first of all, try to document the things that have come up that are of positive use, which could be someone even working with the panelists in this session to get the opinions put together in a document. This doesn't need to go through a peer review paper, but it could be published on AEN's website. It could also even just be a blog from here that is well documented and published with the view of submitting this for ESIC when it subsequently comes up. Because of course, the objective of ESIC is collaboration in the evidence synthesis space. And as I said, there are 7 sections in the manifesto that is talking about collaboration. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much. Yes, Harsha.
Yeah, just very quickly and picking up from what Patrick said, the process of documentation cannot be overemphasized. And I think this is what we need in Africa. So I'm going to say what needs to be done from what we have started in South Africa. And I took complete advantage of the Global Forum meeting in South Africa in Cape Town. And apologies for those who are not familiar with what had happened. But it was a very ambitious planning process. But what's going to happen next, we're not sure. But take the roadmap, and this is what we're doing already. Take the roadmap and apply it to your national context. And we have the advantage of having documented our own South African evidence ecosystem. Who's the different collaborators, who's the different producers, who's the different users, because these are the codependencies. And we're going to apply the roadmap to our national status, meaning this is our starting point. So then we can define where the capacity is needed and where the capacity exists to implement this roadmap, so that nobody else needs to come and tell us this is what's happening, this is where you should be building capacity, although we know that this kind of capacity exists. So I would encourage this documentation to be taken up, but take it within your context, and build this relationship to document that status quo of your evidence ecosystem. That would be the starting point for me.
Sure. Thank you very much for highlighting those starting points, Harsha and Patrick. I see Berenice. Your hand is up. You want to unmute and share with us your question or comments on this subject matter. For the sake of time, I think this will be the last intervention, after which our panelists will provide some concluding remarks, and then we can wrap up the conversation. So, Berenice, yes. Berenice, you are muted. You want to unmute, and then you come through. Berenice is not talking. And so I would proceed to then ask her, as we're preparing for, it's almost time, about a month away to Evidence 2025. What do you think we can do differently to leverage the manifesto, as in to promote EIDM at this conference? Let's focus on the conference itself. What do we think we can do differently, right, to position, to pitch the manifesto for capacity issues at the conference? Anybody else? Anybody can take this up if any ideas come to mind. Jennifer, Leandro, Patrick, Harsha. Yeah.
So if I want to jump there quickly, I think what I could say is building from what we have just discussed, from what I said earlier, from the inputs that also came in from Harsha. I think we can actually have a session or a number of sessions that will just be talking about use cases from the manifesto. So I pick a section and I say, this is where it came from, and this is what I did. These were my challenges, and this is how I think we can jump into ESIC, for example. There are many of these structures
other
coming up.
spaces. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Patrick. I see, Jennifer, you are nodding. Is there something you want to add?
I was just quickly going to add that AEN in previous years has successfully done like stories of change and highlighted that in various thematic areas. So I wonder, leading up to the conference, I don't know if it's too late now because it's next month, isn't it? If some individuals and organizations can start thinking about which parts resonated, what's working, how they've kind of lived it out and brought it to life, which principles they resonate with, those can be highlighted for discussion. And even in this sort of case way that Patrick has presented it, if there are key challenges, we can work through those challenges together, because these challenges cut across countries and sectors. So we can use some of these case studies to actually be a case study to kind of think through what has been working well, what are the challenges, what can we learn, what are some things that maybe worked in one area that we could possibly apply in another as well.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Leandro, Harsha, you want to share some thoughts quickly on this? Yeah, Harsha.
Oh, I thought Leandro was coming in. Leandro?
Yeah, I can add a few ideas. I don't think I will have the pressure to attend the event, but I think it would be important, to present this manifesto as a framing document for more systemic discussions on capacity development, like try to, where possible, bring it into different discussions. Maybe also emphasize this is sort of a continental commitment from the network to support evidence-informed decision-making principles. And as you are doing, like showcases as a living document and invite further input from the different attendees, maybe having it a separate spot in the conference where people can provide ideas to continue strengthening the manifesto.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Harsha. Yeah.
Yeah, just a very quick one. So I think that, because the evidence 2025 and in Benin, we're going to be focusing then on Africa, and we mentioned how it can link with ESIC. But I think the manifesto being a inspirational document, to move it into the direction of a capacity plan, and a capacity plan that would be by design what we build on from these use cases and these documentation of our own basic evidence ecosystems, mapping out the existing producers, users, and the intermediaries, and then only start to define where we need capacity based on these capacity plans. Because otherwise, I think, we must stop being guided and led by what funders have their agenda only. I think funding is needed. Funders are always needed. And then what government has their own agenda, and policy the others that have problems from different sectors have their own agenda. So where do we have the manifesto's capacity planning agenda defined by these principles that we all mentioned? So I think I think the 2025 can lead into from the use case scenarios and share that, but it also means deeper conversation. So, like Jennifer said, you have these storytelling, these quick announcements, but you have deeper dialogue around what is it that we need capacity around. We need to define that.
All right. Thank you very much, colleagues, for the time. It's been an amazing time navigating these issues collectively from a producer perspective, from a user perspective, and as intermediaries. We're hoping that these conversations will not end here, but will continue. And when we will meet, those who will meet in Benin, we can take some of these things much forward. At this point, I will invite Sidziwe to wrap up the session, and then it's up for a day.
Great. Thank you very much. At least I found my video now. I was like, this meeting can't end without showing my video and be able to see everyone. It's so great to always be able to connect with one another, and continue these conversations. I cannot even believe that it's been 5 years in the making for us trying to build this manifesto, and these conversations excited me and warmed my heart to see how committed we are in building the continent. So in closing, so the recording for the webinar and the blog that was suggested will be published to ensure that we continuously, engaged on these discussions. And I'm sure also Ketchup spoke about a few calls that they're doing to build up to Evidence 2025. And I'm sure they'll sort of accelerate that as well to see how people can contribute to this. And not only that, individuals that are participating can only go to the conference in person. There's a big virtual conference as well. Some of these things can be showcased on the virtual conference to make sure that conversations are happening at Evidence in person and both online, and make sure that we, cater for all our AEN members. And I think then also please engage with us on LinkedIn. I'm sure Charity will put the link there as we continue these conversations, because this is really an exciting conversation and worth having on an ongoing basis. So with that being said, I would like to thank everyone for joining this webinar as a build up really to Evidence 2025. Thank you to all the speakers and their commitment really to be part of what we're building as the Africa Evidence Network. Thank you, Ketchup, for moderating the session as well. That was really amazing. Thank you very much to all the over 40 participants that joined this discussion as well. We hope that you continue to join the conversations with us on all our social media platforms, because we want to really continue to engage with you. So thank you so much for joining this session. We will get in touch to make sure that all the ideas that have been shared here, to see how those are packaged for Evidence 2025. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.